Story 1. The Man Who Followed Us Home. I was 26 the year I finally made it to Coachella. For years, my best friend Alyssa and I had been promising each other we'd go. Every January, we'd say, "This is our year," only for life to get in the way. Bills, breakups, brutal work deadlines. But in 2023, everything finally aligned. We both got the time off, scraped together the money, and booked the tickets before we could talk ourselves out of it. We flew into Los Angeles, rented a cute little 2-bedroom Airbnb in Indio, and told ourselves this wasn't just a festival trip, it was going to be an experience, the kind of trip you remember forever. From the second we stepped onto the festival grounds that first day, it felt like walking into another dimension. The desert heat shimmered around us, massive stages rose like temples in the distance, thousands of people moved like a living organism, glitter on their faces, feathers in their hair, neon outfits that glowed even in daylight. Music pulsed from every direction at once. It was overwhelming, chaotic, and completely intoxicating. The first 2 days were pure magic. We danced until our feet blistered, screamed lyrics to our favorite artists, took hundreds of photos, and ate way too much overpriced festival food. We'd collapse back at the Airbnb each night, sore and sunburned, laughing until we couldn't breathe. Nothing bad happened. It was exactly what we'd dreamed of. But by the third and final day, we were running on fumes. Our bodies were screaming for rest, yet we refused to waste even 1 hour. Alyssa had brought a small stash of Molly with her, something she'd suggested weeks earlier. I'd only tried it once, years ago, and it had been a pleasant, gentle roll. So when she pulled out the little bag on the last day, I didn't hesitate. "We'll save it for the big sets tonight," we agreed. We dropped it in the late afternoon, just before heading to one of the main stages. At first, nothing. We wandered through the thickening crowd, the sun still beating down. I turned to Alyssa and said, "I don't feel anything. Maybe it's bunk?" She laughed. "Same. Give it time." 20 minutes later, it hit us like a wave. Everything sharpened and softened at the same time. Colors became impossibly vivid. The bass vibrated through my bones like it was part of my heartbeat. I felt light, euphoric, connected to every stranger smiling around me. The music wasn't just sound anymore. It was alive, wrapping around me, lifting me up. For a while, it was perfect. I finally understood why people chase this feeling. But after about an hour, the warmth began to curdle. My jaw clenched tight. My heart hammered in my chest, too fast, too loud. A restless, anxious energy replaced the bliss. I couldn't stand still. I kept scanning the crowd, hyper-aware of every movement around us. That's when I first noticed him. At first, it was just a passing thought. In a sea of thousands, you expect to see familiar faces, but this wasn't random. He was older, mid-30s maybe, dark hair, scruffy beard, wearing a plain black t-shirt and heavy boots that looked completely out of place among the bright colors and bare feet. He stood out like a shadow in sunlight. The first time I clocked him, he was about 20 feet away, leaning against a barricade, staring directly in our direction. Not dancing, not talking to anyone, just watching. I told myself I was being paranoid. The Molly was making me overthink. But then I saw him again, near the drink stand, then again while we were walking between stages, then near the fence line when we stopped to catch our breath. Every single time I turned around, he was somewhere in my peripheral vision. Never close enough to confront, but never far enough to dismiss. After the 4th or 5th sighting, I grabbed Alyssa's arm. "Alyssa, that guy keeps showing up, the one in the black shirt." She glanced around, then laughed. "Babe, it's the Molly. You're fixating on some random dude. Everyone looks familiar when you're rolling." I forced a laugh too, but deep down, it didn't feel like paranoia. It felt deliberate. As the sun dipped lower, my high twisted further. The euphoria was gone. Now it was just teeth-grinding tension and a growing sense of dread. My skin crawled. Every touch from the crowd felt invasive. And he was still there, always in sight. Then, in the middle of a crushing crowd during one of the biggest sets, he made his move. He pushed through the bodies until he was right beside me. He started dancing, too close, his body brushing against mine. He leaned in, in the middle of a crushing crowd during one of the biggest sets, he made his move. He pushed through the bodies until he was right beside me. He started dancing, too close, his body brushing against mine. He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "You look incredible," he said, voice smooth. "You here alone?" "I'm with my friend," I answered quickly, trying to keep it polite but firm. I stepped away. He didn't take the hint. He hovered, smiling like we were old friends. "Where is she? I can help you find her if you want." Before I could respond, I turned to grab Alyssa's hand, and she was gone. The crowd had swallowed her. Panic exploded in my chest. I spun around, pushing people aside, calling her name. My vision was starting to warp at the edges, colors bleeding, the world tilting slightly. The guy noticed immediately. His smile widened. "Lost your friend? I can help you look. Come on, it's safer with someone." The way he said it sent ice down my spine. Too eager, too ready. "No," I snapped, shoving past him and fighting my way out of the dense crowd. I could feel his eyes on my back the entire time. I eventually broke free into a slightly quieter area near some food trucks and collapsed onto a bench. My body felt like it was betraying me. Heart racing, vision unstable, the ground seeming to shift under my feet. I called Alyssa again and again. The signal kept dropping. When she finally picked up, my voice was shaking. "I'm by the taco stand, near the main path. Please come. Something's wrong." She found me about 15 minutes later. One look at my face and she knew. "We're leaving, now." The walk back to the shuttle felt like a nightmare. Every shadow seemed to move. Every footstep behind me made me flinch. I kept expecting to see him again, but he had vanished. Back at the Airbnb, we locked the doors and tried to come down. Alyssa started packing some of her things, but I was too drained. I collapsed into bed, still wearing my festival clothes, the remnants of the high making everything feel heavy and unreal. At some point in the night, I drifted into an uneasy half-sleep. Then something woke me. I don't know what. Maybe a sound, maybe just instinct. My eyes snapped open, and I looked toward the open doorway of my bedroom. There was someone standing there, tall, completely still, silhouetted against the faint light from the hallway. At first, my drug-fogged brain couldn't make sense of it. Then he shifted slightly, and the moonlight from the window caught his face. It was him. The same dark hair, the same scruffy beard, the same black shirt. He was in our house, watching me sleep. I froze for half a second, then screamed. A raw, guttural scream that tore from my throat. I yanked the covers over my head like a child, as if that could somehow protect me. Elisa came bursting into the room, flipping on the light. The doorway was empty. No one there. I was sobbing, shaking, trying to explain. He was right there. The guy from the festival. He was standing in the doorway. Elisa held me, her voice gentle but firm. "It was the Molly, babe. You're coming down hard." It wasn't real, but it had felt real. Too real. The way he stood, the way he watched. We ended up sleeping in the same bed with every light in the house on. The next morning, Elisa woke me up screaming. She was standing frozen in my bedroom doorway, staring at the floor. I sat up, heart pounding. There, on the hardwood floor, were muddy boot prints. They started near the front door, tracked down the hallway, and stopped exactly where the man had been standing the night before. Then they turned around and went back out the same way. We checked the entire house. The front door was still locked. Nothing was missing. No windows broken. No signs of forced entry. But those prints were there, clear as day. Size 11 or 12 men's boots, caked with desert dust and dried mud. That's when the real terror set in. He had been inside our house. He had stood there watching me sleep, and somehow, he had left without a trace. We never figured out how he found us. We never figured out how he got in. We packed in under 20 minutes, left a frantic message for the host with photos of the prints, and drove straight to the airport. I haven't touched Molly since that night, and even now, years later, every time I turn off the lights, I still pause before closing my eyes. I still check the doorway, just in case. This version is approximately 1,450 to 1,500 words, which